All right. Wah! What's up, everybody? My name is Simon Hill, Black American from Louisiana, coming to you live from Budapest, Hungary. Today is May 5th, 2024. It's about 2:18 p.m. where we at right now. And this is Simon and AKDI Movie Reviews, also called Cinema Crossroads on Spotify. Shout out to everybody who's been subscribing to my channel on YouTube, Simon Hill Keeps It Trail. And shout out to everybody who's been supporting us on Spotify as well and on X. And I'm here with my beautiful wife. Say hi, boo.
Hi everyone, I'm Akdi and I'm from Turkey.
Yeah, and today we are reviewing in this 45th episode a documentary about Baton Rouge hip hop called Diamonds in the Dirt. We watched it last night, and it was by far one of the most interesting hip hop documentaries I've ever seen. I really liked the style of the editing, the way they presented the information, and coming from Louisiana, we don't have a lot of resources. Like, we're a very poor state. We're a place where people don't have a lot of you know opportunities to learn the skills and talents to do the sort of editing and production value that this documentary has. So, I really, really enjoyed it last night. But how did you feel after you watched it, acting?
I really liked it too. I thought it was very unique. It definitely had that Louisiana or Baton Rouge like aesthetic to it, like the narration, especially. It was definitely like very unique. It wasn't like your any documentary. So,
Hmm.
and it showed like very diverse parts of this town.
Hmm.
So that was like really cool to see.
Yeah, for me too, it was cool to see because, like, coming up in Louisiana, we just imagine Baton Rouge as a bigger extension of like small town Louisiana. Everybody knows New Orleans, the big city with like, I think about 1 million people that live there. But I'm from Monroe, Louisiana, and the rest of, most of Louisianans live in small towns like, Shreveport, like Lake Charles, like Pineville, like Natchitoches, like Baton Rouge. So when I imagine Baton Rouge, I just think of like gutter street music and a lot of gangster music, which this documentary does show. But like you said, Acty, there were like a diverse array of artists that came out of Baton Rouge, even white rappers. I didn't even know that. I didn't know Baton Rouge had white rappers.
Yeah, that was definitely fun. And like, I really like the way that they showed it from the very beginning.
Mm.
Like, it sort of started with like disco rap, sort of,
Hmm.
which
Hmm.
is like also how rap started as well, like in New York and stuff like that. It was like really, really fun. And also, like, the diversity was also in like what the rappers did. Because,
Hmm.
like you said, there's a lot of like gangster stuff happening in Baton Rouge, but then also they showed people who were who redeemed themselves from those sorts of activities. And yeah, it was like definitely cool to see that.
Yeah, going into this movie, speaking of gangster stuff, I was expecting there to be a lot more murder, a lot more gun violence, but there actually isn't a lot of that in this film. Were you surprised by that too?
I mean, I didn't know really what to expect when they showed like the parts of the town and stuff like that. It definitely looked quote unquote ghetto. But yeah, like, I mean, there were parts of like, not parts, but people were talking about the violence and gangbanging and stuff like that, and there were a lot of people who were rapping and they went to jail and stuff like that. But in terms of visuals, they didn't show it that much.
Yeah, yeah. In terms of, you know, telling the story, yeah, some people went to jail, like Celo and other artists. I believe Silky Slim went to jail too, and stuff like that. But the story is very centered around the music, the lives of these musicians, these rappers, and how they got their records out, and how they overcame the odds. Because Baton Rouge is a medium-sized city, and back in the day in hip hop, if you weren't from LA or New York, you weren't getting, mainstream attention. You weren't getting your song on the charts. But these guys found a way. So it's kind of inspiring.
It is definitely, and it's like, I think also what the movie was trying to tell was that these people, yeah, they were born in that culture where violence is like sort of normalized,
Mm.
but also they were using music to express themselves in different ways, like express their anger in different ways through music
Hmm.
without violence. And yeah, I think that's why it also like didn't show that much violence, because yeah, once they were like in the music scene, they were like, that's what they were all about.
Right. It's a beautiful thing. And it's a continuation of like the Black American tradition of creating something out of nothing. I mean, that's what jazz was. These guys were told you guys would never know music. And these guys reinvented music theory to the point people study jazz like a science. The same thing with R&B, the same thing with rock and roll. Like Black Americans find a way to make the worst situations into the most beautiful things. The roses that grow out of concrete. And I'm so, glad they made this documentary because this is a story that needs to be told. And I'm glad many of the people are still alive to tell it. That's another thing. When we think about all the murders and violence that surrounded these people, they're still walking the earth. And I'm glad they got them on film to talk.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think in the beginning of the movie, one guy was like talking and he said like Baton Rouge is a middle-sized city with big city problems.
Mm, mm.
So yeah, it's kind of amazing.
Very, very. Well, let's walk through the documentary. We're gonna, jump from scenes to scenes, but not stay too in depth. Basically, the film opens up with a panoramic drone shot view of Baton Rouge, and you see this city that has a few tall buildings, but it doesn't look like anything major. With the Mississippi River running through it, with the brown water and everything like that. And the person narrating the story is Max Minnelli, who is a local rapper who is also a legend from Baton Rouge. And as he's walking through Baton Rouge, he talks about, I'm from this city that has a lot of pain, a lot of drama, but we have a lot of grit, a lot of grind, and a lot of hustle. And he starts talking about some major national figures who came out of Baton Rouge that a lot of people don't know. He starts by talking about Jimmy Swaggart, who was a Pentecostal televangelist preacher who made a lot of money preaching the word of Jesus Christ to to people who thought giving Jimmy money was how they were going to get into heaven. Then he talks about Barry Seal, and Barry Seal is an interesting person because Tom Cruise actually made a movie about him called American Made, and I saw it. Did you see it, Acty?
No, I didn't see it, but I definitely heard the name Barry Seal from the movie.
Okay, okay. Well, yeah, Barry Seal, basically, he was a bitch. He was basically a snitch who was working with the feds to snitch on the cartel who were trafficking cocaine into Miami. But then also at the same time, he was running guns into Louisiana. And he was basically flying his plane so low and literally dropping crates of weapons into Louisiana. And then people wonder why we have the murder rate that we do. You get what I'm saying? So, yeah, fuck Barry Seal on many levels. And I'm glad his bitch ass got killed by the cartel. But the last person they talked about was Edwin Edwards, who was a Democratic governor of Louisiana for a long ass time, and he ended up, fighting for the minorities and the poor people of Louisiana, which is a tradition of many politicians in Louisiana, like Eddie Long and stuff like that. Earl Long, I believe, whatever. I forgot his name exactly, but yeah, Edwin Edwards was like loved by the poor people of Louisiana, but he was also part of the tradition of Louisiana politicians that was corrupt. And he ended up going to jail, federal prison, for like 7 years or something like that, for like extortion and racketeering and all that sort of stuff. What did you think about the beginning of the film when they were talking about all these people?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely interesting. It's because like all the people that they were talking about were like two of them were inspirational, I guess, and one of them was a criminal. But it was also kind of showing like, okay, like yeah, we have different sorts of people that came out of here, and they did like different stuff. Some of them were inspirational, and also I was like kind of surprised by the governor, because
Mhm,
I didn't think that a lot of like southern state governors supporting minorities, because there is still a lot of like poverty there, and a lot of you know poverty around like black communities. So I was like, okay, like that's cool.
mhm.
And yeah, I didn't know that that was like a sort of like a thing that the governors did or was popular for.
Yeah, for Edwin Edwards, I mean, Louisiana is like 35% black. So if you're going to win an election, you're going to have to get some black votes. So maybe that's why Edwin Edwards was doing that. But also in Louisiana, everybody's poor. Like white folks are poor and black folks are poor. It's just a problem in Louisiana. The poor white folks hate on poor black folks rather than hating the bosses who keep us all fucked up and poor. So that's just his situation, I guess. But
Mm.
as far as Jimmy Swaggart, like Jimmy Swaggart, I don't think he's inspirational either because telling people, "Hey, give me money so that you can get your blessings." That's manipulation.
I mean,
That's
he's inspirational maybe for like Christians, not for me specifically, but at least he did like music or something. I don't know
mhm.
that much about him, but
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Well, that was the introduction to Baton Rouge hustler history. A lot of fat old white men who did really bad stuff. I like that the movie opened up with that. But then he starts talking about the murder rate in Baton Rouge, how Baton Rouge had about 70 homicides, like in 1 year, which made Baton Rouge more dangerous than larger cities like Chicago or Atlanta, and made it like in the top 10 of murder capitals in America, which is something that's still very real today in Baton Rouge. And then he starts talking about the history of hip hop. Right, hip hop started in New York, but in 1985, the first rap group in Baton Rouge formed. It was called Reality, and it was made up of two guys, I believe MC Smooth and MC Fresh, and they were making a song about how there were black children in Atlanta getting abducted and nobody ever found them again. And I thought that was interesting because, they said it was the first rap record made in Louisiana, period, which I didn't even know. You would think it would be New Orleans, a bigger city, but they make the argument that was the first one. And it's very interesting also that it was sort of like a conscious rap song. We think of Baton Rouge for like booty music and twerking and shaking, but I thought that was cool. What did you think about that part?
Yeah, it was definitely inspirational. I think I remember it was called Missing Kids,
Mm-hmm.
like the first song that they made, and it was about like all these black kids disappearing at a time,
Mm-hmm.
and they were like being kidnapped or something, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And it was about that, which is like pretty cool that they did like a, like you said, like a conscious political in a way like song,
Mm-hmm.
which is really cool because yeah, like I feel like when they're showing like you know um how rap music started is sort of like a disco-ish bit,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and like maybe a little bit of funk.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's nice that right off the bat, like Baton Rouge's like first, hip hop song is like something different and unique
Mm-hmm.
to them.
Yeah.
So it's like they didn't go with the traditional way, even with the first time.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So moving on, they then talk about 5 years later in like 1990. This guy comes out of Baton Rouge. His name is Kuiper, and Kuiper makes a different type of music. It's more techno, electronic, dance, hip hop, right? And he's like dancing in like these tight wife beaters with like go-go dancers behind him. And he has this big song called Tic Tac Toe, which ended up charting. I believe it was the first song from Baton Rouge to reach the charts. And then after that, there's this other crazy guy who comes out. Oh man, I forgot his name. His name was man MC, the black guy who kind of looked homeless. What was his name?
Oh God, I don't know. You can't ask me this question in this documentary.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But he's very important for Baton Rouge history. Um, Man, he had like a very unique style, sort of like an ODB type of Busta Rhymes type of style, where he rapped very fast, squeaked his voice and stuff like that. And his name was MC Nero. Yeah, that's what it was.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, MC Nero comes out, and he has a very eclectic, energetic style, and he has a big song that becomes a hit in the streets called "I Got a Lot of Respect." I got a lot of respect. So, what did you think about Kuiper's like techno dance music, and then MC Nero's type of upbeat rapidy rap sort of records? What did you think of that?
Yeah, like Kuiper, young Kuiper giving gay vibes, and then old Kuiper is giving zaddy vibes. I don't know how that happened, but he's definitely like he looks like a very cool person, and probably back then he was too, but it's just
Mhm.
like back then. So like the tank tops and the you know, weird pants.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was definitely like fun to see. And talking about Nero,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like when I first saw him, I was like, okay, this guy is like kind of talking like he's either too high or he looks like a bit like a homeless guy.
Mm-hmm.
But then like he starts talking and he's actually like pretty cool, and he says like he got diabetes and he's
Mm-hmm.
on the dialysis machine now, and they talk about like he I think he died in 2017,
Mm-hmm.
and like this was his last interview, and like at that point I was glad that like he was able to tell his story
Mm-hmm.
to an extent, you know.
Yeah.
Because these are like definitely like some, I don't know, like they took some steps for other like young rappers and young musicians to do better. So
Yeah.
these are important people within that like community in that region.
Yeah.
So it's important that their stories are told.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting how Kuiper and Nero sort of laid the groundwork for like the up tempo Baton Rouge hip hop that would follow later, and also like the more party element, because that's really what Baton Rouge is known for: party music and up tempo, and also a little bit of gangster. Now Kuiper wasn't gangster and Nero wasn't gangster, but they still sort of laid that framework down for that. And I thought it was interesting too how like MC Nero, I feel like if he was from any other city, if he was like from New York or Chicago, he might have been much bigger because there have been other rappers who have been like weird or eccentric and have very different styles who end up blowing up because they have that opportunity. And I feel like Nero didn't get that opportunity to blow up because he was from Baton Rouge. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely given like a little bit of like Snoop, or I don't know.
Hmm.
But yeah, like he might have been bigger. And possibly like, any of these artists might have been bigger if they
Hmm.
were from those cities, because it is like when you watch this documentary, it is obvious that they definitely had talent.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, yeah, definitely. And for anybody listening from Louisiana, listen, I didn't know about Nero. I didn't know about Kuiper. I was born in 1990, and like, I'll just keep it real. Like, growing up, we were more on like Cash Money, and we were more on like Trill Entertainment in my generation. So like, I didn't know all this history, but that's the reason I'm learning this history. So y'all just bear with me right now. But moving on, this is when we finally get into like the gangster era of like Baton Rouge hip hop with Silky Slim and the Bottom Posse. And Silky Slim makes a song called, I can't wait to kill a nigga, or I really want to kill a nigga. And he, is posing with guns in his pictures and on his album covers. And, his whole clique is just making music about being from the bottom, the south side of Baton Rouge, one of the most dangerous sections of the city. And the album cover and title is hilarious because it was called Niggas Straight Out of Hell. Niggas Straight Out of Hell. And yeah, what did you think about that part?
Yeah, like when I saw like they were showing his old photos with like holding guns and police tape in his mouth and stuff like that, it was definitely like hilarious, but it was also like real, because you can see how like the how people hang out back then,
Hmm.
and maybe possibly even now, but like how is that community and what is like popular and not in that community and
Hmm.
stuff like that. And I do also have to say like all of the album covers in this movie are hilarious, because they're like the old style, and yeah, like the song names and the album names are just like hilarious in a way that's like also very catchy
Hmm.
and somewhat like genius.
Hmm.
And yeah, like some of the album covers and like titles and stuff like that, like you're gonna have fun if you're gonna be listening to that album.
Yeah.
Maybe not now, but definitely back then.
Right. Like with
um,
Silky Slim titling an album, I Sold My Soul to the Hood. And and on
yeah.
the front cover, he's holding the AK-47 in front of his like Cadillac. Like what?
Yeah, definitely. Like it sounds like it looks and sounds like a pop.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
yeah, like, and also like his story is definitely inspirational, because I think he went to jail, right?
He went to jail and he
Yeah.
had a car crash in 2003.
Yeah, so he's talking about like his car accident, and he's saying like he lost like two other friends that were in the car with him, and he
Mm-hmm.
was the only one who survived. And he's saying like, when that happened, I was more worried about what was in the car, like some drugs or some guns or something.
Mm-hmm.
And that really like taught him a lesson, and basically he took another chance with his life and sort of dedicated his life, like creating this nonprofit organization,
Mm-hmm.
Stop the Killing Inc. Was it that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so and then like he sort of started giving back to the community, helping young kids and young artists, like not get into something that would ruin their life, basically.
Yeah.
So that was very inspirational, and once again, that's why like this documentary was very nice, because it showed different sides. Like not everyone was locked up and doing drugs and da da da. Like yes,
Mm-hmm.
he was, but he made a better story of his life.
He did make a better story with his life, but it's also a little bit sad because I feel like Silky Slim once again could have been much bigger, but going to jail like hampered his career. And this is a sort of repeat thing that we'll see with a lot of Baton Rouge artists in this documentary as well, because Celo has all the opportunity, but then he goes to jail right at the moment when his peak could have been. You get what I'm saying? And I also thought it was interesting with the Silky Slim part where he said he regretted making the song "I Feel Like Killing a Nigga" because he talks about going into a record store one day and there's like 13 white guys and they're saying, "Hey, Silky Slim, tell us what's your favorite song?" And he says, "I feel like killing a nigga." And all the white people go crazy. They say, "Yeah." What did you think of that part?
Yeah, definitely. Like in the interview, he says like, damn, is this what I'm giving out? Like, is this the message I'm giving out? Which is like, yeah, like I don't know. It's so hard within like this, especially in gangster rap, because your music can also be, you know, listened by white folks
Hmm.
in that area too. So it's like, okay, what kind of message do I need to give? But I'm also doing music for my, for Black people as well,
Hmm.
or
Hmm.
mostly for Black people. So it's really hard to find that balance. And he says he regretted making the song, but like obviously I feel like most people would assume that this is just a song and not
Hmm.
like real. But then there are some unstable people in the society.
Well,
So
the
it's
thing
definitely a challenge.
Well, the thing about hip hop that's crazy, there's this constant debate like, does life imitate art or does art imitate life and stuff like that? And I always feel like it's a mix of both because you know what, hip hop won't make you kill somebody, but it can make you, motivated and push you over the edge if you're already at that point. Like, cause I've listened to a lot of gangster rap and I've never killed anybody, never wanted to kill anybody, but I do remember, like, smoking weed because I heard, Bun B and Pimp C rap about it. I remember wanting to try lean because I heard Future rap about it. You get what I'm saying? But I've also done good stuff because of hip hop too. Like I've always worn a condom, or most of the time I've worn a condom because I heard Snoop say, "Ain't no pussy good enough to get burnt while I'm up in it." You get what I'm saying? So there's the messages in the music are very influential. Hip hop is such a powerful thing because people live and die by these lyrics. And as far as like the white folks listening to it, that's just Baton Rouge racism. Like we're surrounded by in Louisiana, you're surrounded by a bunch of racist white folks. So of course they're gonna like a song. I feel like killing a nigga. Of course they're gonna like that.
Yeah. I mean, yes, I get that. I mean, I guess it's also like special around hip hop, but
Hmm.
also it's kind of like that with every music. Like, if you're already depressed and suicidal, then you listen to a suicidal song, then that might
Hmm.
just drive you off the edge. But then like yeah, I don't know. It's music that affects you, but I guess with hip hop it does have a lot of like political and emotional stuff, and a lot of anger as well, like
Hmm.
towards society, or I don't know, towards yourself sometimes.
Hmm.
So I guess it really like hits hard when
Yeah.
you're listening to that. But once again, like, it's not gonna all of a sudden make you go out and kill people.
Exactly, exactly. Well, moving on in the story, now we get Celo coming in, and Celo is a Baton Rouge legend who basically has released like 38 albums, and has, a bunch of hits, like really local hits. And he is basically almost like the godfather of Baton Rouge hip hop, because while Kuiper and MC Nero sort of had like big local hits, Celo was the first one to like be on BET. He was the first one to have a big budget video. He was the first one to have like a really big hit, and also help bring an artist, Young Bleed, to Master P, who then they, create a national hit called How You Do That There. But How You Do That There, even though that's a great song, it was actually a Young Bleed original song on a CeeLo compilation album called A Fool. And it's such a classic song. And for me, CeeLo I didn't know CeeLo was important and big as he was. In fact, I thought he was a one hit wonder, because coming up in Monroe, Louisiana, there was this big song called Ooh, Get In There, Ooh, Get Out of There. Like that, baby. Like that. That was such a hit. I love that song to this day. And I did not have any idea that was CeeLo from Baton Rouge. So, I just love CeeLo's part and everything he did for the game. Yeah, he ends up forming this group called like the Concentration Clique with Young Bleed and a bunch of other rappers. But eventually the group falls apart when, basically their second album doesn't do as well as their first in the streets. What did you think about that section?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, he was definitely like a godfather of that era in music, because not only he was making music and then bringing people together, but he was also like discovering new artists, which
Hmm.
was like really cool to see how he was talking about this guy, I forgot his name, the young guy.
Lil Boosie?
Lil Boosie, yes, and like how he was talking about him, like he was like, this kid was extraordinary, so I had to do something, and you
Hmm.
can see like the love that people have for each other there, because also like sometimes maybe people might see, oh, it's always like battles and dissing each other and gang banging and stuff like that, but then there's also like a lot of brotherhood within that
Hmm.
community. I felt like in like Celo's part,
Hmm. Hmm.
Celoc's part, sorry.
CeeLo's
So
part.
sorry. It's hard for me to remember the names,
No, it's all right.
but
It's all right.
anyway, I felt like he was like that bringing together factor in this community.
Yeah, yeah.
And also like his like the during this part of the documentary, the songs they play from the album, they were really good. I
Hmm.
like them, and I feel like they still hold up to this day.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like that certain sound that they were coming with, that's sort of like really the blueprint for like that Baton Rouge bounce. You know what I'm saying? Before we started this live stream, I was listening to some Boosie, and he has a song called that Baton Rouge bounce, and you were twerking to it. Don't you remember?
Yeah. Oh, okay. I didn't know it was Boosie, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Sweating so hard, need 3 or 4 towels. Sweating so hard. I'm sweating so hard. Hey. But man, this Baton Rouge history is so deep. And like once again, like you said, Acty, like CeeLo, he sort of like is like the root for like how so many artists branched out and did so many things, because without CeeLo sort of like putting on Little Boosie, we wouldn't have like so many other things that came after. It's almost impossible to explain. And I think CeeLo does not get enough of his flowers. And he also brought in like Max Minnelli too. Minnelli, the guy who put together this documentary as well, and he's also a great rapper as well too. And when CeeLo, discovered Lil Boosie, he realized that so many people loved his music, and Boosie had sort of this it factor that people just were gravitated to. They couldn't believe this, 15, 16-year-old kid was rapping like a grown man, like rapping about stuff that, a person 3 times their age would only know about, and they just loved him automatically. But then, CeeLo is trying to like, record Boosie, and like he brings him out to Texas to record his first album, and Boosie does it in 3 days. But then CeeLo ends up going to jail right before the album is dropping, and the reason he goes to jail is because he beat up a DJ who was bootlegging his CDs, and that was the big no-no, because that's how they made all their money and stuff like that. And yeah, it ends up falling on Max Minnelli to be like the CEO, to help CeeLo's label launch Boosie's career. What did you think about that part?
Yeah, I mean, I was definitely very impressed by like Boosie and what they were saying about him. and also like what he was, saying about himself and stuff like that. And he still looks like very young. That's what I said when we were watching the interview. Like he still looks like a 20-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
But that was definitely like amazing how you can be so like good at that age, and it also goes to show like what kind of conditions he might have grew up in
Mm-hmm.
to be able to see and live that many like hard things, and
Mm-hmm.
then like pour that out into music.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That is amazing. And also, yeah, I was really sad that when Sealock went to jail, like you said, right at the top, like he was producing for Boosie Badass, and they were about to become even bigger and stuff like that, and then bam, like he goes to jail. But it's also cool that he still like kept on sort of like arranging stuff from
Mm-hmm.
jail.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like he didn't give up still, and probably like during his time in jail, that was something that kept him like going.
Yeah.
Also, which is cool. But yeah, that part was really sad.
Yeah.
And I was gonna say something else.
No, but
I
like I was
forgot.
saying earlier, it's sort of like it's sort of a vicious circle that happens with Baton Rouge artists because we've seen it so many times. Like like they said at the begin, like I said at the beginning, Silky Slim went to jail right when he was about to blow. Celo went to jail right when he's about to blow. And right now, currently, NBA YoungBoy is always in some legal drama when he literally could be the biggest rapper in the world, bigger than Drake. But young boy is sort of like falling into that same Baton Rouge trap. And I sort of wish that in this documentary they sort of made mention of that, but they're just trying to like tell the story and not send that message out there. But I really think Baton Rouge and Louisiana in general has so much talent, but all the gangster shit seems to always bring our artists down, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, that's a shame. That's definitely a shame. I don't know, like I don't remember because they keep on telling like Boosie's story, right?
Hmm.
And he started becoming like really, hit and stuff like that. And then they don't really say like what happened with him, like if he got any bigger or no.
No, Boosie definitely got bigger. I mean, he is like the god. Like literally, he is like Jay Z from Louisiana, and he is like the Jay Z of the South. Like Boosie is a ghetto legend, like above, you know what I mean? Like it's hard to even describe it. His words are like biblical verses. I don't even know how to say it. But the crazy thing is, Boosie almost fell into the same trap too. But I think they're gonna put that in the Diamonds in the Dirt second documentary because there's two parts to
Mm.
this documentary. And the second half is when Baton Rouge really started to blow up and became bigger than New Orleans. And what happened to Boosie is that it's sort of like touchy to talk about it. And, I still got family in Louisiana, so I don't want to get too deep into it. But essentially, they claim that Boosie put a hit out on somebody, a fellow rapper. There was a rapper who he was beefing with called Nussy. And they say that Boosie paid a 15-year-old boy or some teenage boy to kill this guy. And Boosie was on trial for that. And he beat the murder rap, like OJ. You get what I'm saying?
Mm. I
So,
mean, if
yeah.
that's true, like that's definitely a shame that he would do something like that because yeah, like when he was 15, they got him and they made him a star like Sealock, and like yeah, they basically sort of saved him from that sort of community, but maybe not, I guess.
Hmm. Hmm.
So instead of like helping kids like him once,
Hmm.
it's a shame that he would do something like that if that's true.
Yeah. I mean, it's a touchy thing. And I mean, Boosie was found innocent. And if a black man is found innocent in Louisiana, then you just got to take it for what it is. Because it's, ain't no, there's only been like five black people to ever beat a murder charge in Louisiana. And Boosie is like one of them. So he's innocent. I'm letting everybody know Boosie did not kill Terry Boyd. He did not pay Marlon Mike to kill Terry Boyd. No matter what you see in the case, no matter if there's a money trail, Boosie did not kill Terry Boyd. All right, y'all don't come for me.
Okay, okay.
Anyway, so yeah, after they talk about Boosie, they go to another section of the city and they go to North Baton Rouge because like the first half of the documentary is talking about South Side Baton Rouge, which has sort of like the most musical history. But then they go to the north and they start talking about Belo, who is a guy who is a rapper as well. He puts out a few records and he also opens a record shop and he becomes popular, but he starts doing more of that, upbeat techno dance type music and stuff like that that Kuiper was doing, right? And I believe he was affiliated with Kuiper as well. And yeah, he releases a few albums that get like some notoriety in the city. But then he also, helps bring in these young kids years later called Lil Josh and Ernest, who released this big song called Jigga Juice. And like, I don't even know what words to say, like how big the jig movement is. Cause that was literally like my teenage years. Like that whole sound of like very, very fast dance music where people are jigging. And jigging, by the way, is when like you're off a pill, like you're on an ecstasy pill or MDMA pill, Molly pill, whatever, and you're in the club just getting loose. And like I had no idea Belo was sort of like the person that sort of like helped bring that style in. I really thought that was Boosie and shit like that. But I don't know. What do you think about that section?
Okay, wow. Like, I didn't know what jigging was.
Mm-hmm.
And it definitely looks more innocent because when they show like the video clip for it, it's like these kids who are like 14, 15-year old and they're
Mm-hmm.
dancing and stuff like that. So I thought it was like just a dance move.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know, shaking or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't know it was like taking a drug or something like that. But it definitely sounded fun. I mean, the dance and the music like sounded fun, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It was interesting to hear about Belo's story because Belo's story, I didn't know much about him, and to be honest, like I'm not really a big fan of like his type of music or also jig and music in general. But it was just everywhere in the atmosphere of where I grew up. But Belo actually was accused of bootlegging some CDs from another local label called Trill Entertainment. And Trill Entertainment was this big label. Like they were supposed to be bigger than Cash Money and No Limit because they had Boosie and Webby and a bunch of hits and stuff like that. But back in like 2005 or 8 or something like that, they accused Belo of bootlegging their CDs and they jump him and shoot him or try to shoot him. And then that ends up bringing down the CEOs of Trill Entertainment. And these guys' names were Turk and Mel. And so learning about Belo's part of the story really filled in a big gap for me in my mind because I always wondered how did Trill Entertainment fall apart? And they explain it because Belo tells the story how he got jumped and how he didn't even bootleg the CDs anyway. So yeah, what did you think about that part, if anything?
I mean, like, I don't know much about these characters. I don't know anything about these characters because I am from Turkey.
Mm-hmm,
But yeah, I remembered what I was gonna say, and I guess it's also related to this. That like at that time, like selling your music meant like selling CDs, right?
mm-hmm,
Even like
mm-hmm,
when you were a rapper and you were like trying to get big and stuff like that, like
mm-hmm,
they talk about like going out, filling up the trunk and then like handing up CDs to people in the malls in the street and stuff like that. So
mm-hmm,
I guess like during that time, like YouTube and like other social medias were just so new that nobody really cared about them.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And so like that wasn't really like an option to make yourself known from like the internet. And it was
mm-hmm,
like more face to face interaction that you needed. And
mm-hmm,
it goes to show like there were also like a lot of controversies and loss with like bootlegging because yeah,
mm-hmm.
you can only do that like with CDs. And I
Yeah.
mean you can do that online, it's like pirating, but yeah, like that part also of that history is kind of like of course bootlegging is not nice, but also going out interacting with people, giving them your CDs and stuff like that, I feel like that's cool because like
Yeah.
we kind of don't have that with in the internet and we just leave like sassy comments now, and that like I don't know, it's of course there are good things because it made artists like it made it easier for new artists to come up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they can upload stuff now, but it's also like kind of limited interaction with the fans and with the society and with your community a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, the passing out CDs era was such a long time of hip hop history, and it's so integral because it used to be like wherever you went, if you were at a function or a party, there would be some guy in your city passing out CDs, his mixtape, his album, whatever, literally out the trunk of his car. Like it was in every hood, every ghetto, every city. No matter where you went, you always saw somebody like that doing that. And nowadays, it's not the same, right? But yeah, we skipped over something. Bilo also brought in a female rapper, and there is some female rap representation. So Bilo had an artist with him that he recorded with called the Gangster, and the Gangster was this, hardcore rap lady who was holding it down on the mic and tearing it down. What'd you think about her section?
Yeah, it was definitely cool to see a female representation
Hmm.
within that community, and I think she was like the only girl that they mentioned in this documentary, at least.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was cool that he also did that. Like he brought in, a sister.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I wish that they interviewed her because, she didn't speak. They seem to be able to get everybody else but her. I wonder if the gangster is still alive or maybe she's dead or maybe she just didn't want to be a part of it. But I would really like to hear her side of the story because, yeah, this is a big sausage fest in this doc.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't know. Maybe she's not alive anymore.
Maybe, maybe. But moving on, this was when the film kind of got a bit weird. This was the part that came sort
Yeah.
of out of nowhere. So we're introduced to the South Coast Coalition. And the way we're introduced is that there's a home recording of a white man trying to put a staple in his forehead. And he puts the staple in his forehead and then he can't pull it out. What did you think about that? I was like, what? Whoa, whoa. I was like, what is happening here? We went from I can't wait to kill a nigga to jackass. I was like, what happened?
Yeah, it was definitely like very ironic. Not ironic, but it was just hilarious that like yeah, you had like, guys with guns in their hands posing for the
Hmm.
camera and then like this guy stapling his forehead.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, is this what white boys are doing to get thrill of
Yeah.
life because they
Yeah.
don't have enough like guns and shootings? Like I don't know what was happening. It was definitely like if that was a YouTube channel now, they would get watched because it's just so silly.
Yeah, but I think, the thing in the 90s, there was this stereotype about white boys that they would just do the craziest, wildest stuff. Like there used to be home skate videos, right? Underground skate videos where white boys would be, of course, like skating and doing like skateboard tricks and stuff like that. But then also like, hey man, let me just fucking smack this beer can in my forehead. Or hey man, let me just jump off the side of the bridge and see what happens. Like there was that sort of stereotype. So they were like leaning into that. And then also MTV was playing the show Jackass as well. So, there was that sort of thing. And the way they sort of describe South Coast Coalition is like they were sort of like the Deep South's version of like Eminem. Like these guys were rapping about partying and doing drugs and all sorts of stuff. And but they were also a bit more lyrical. But they were also hustlers too because they showed them like selling their CDs out the back of their trunk, and they were collaborating also with the black artists in their city. So it wasn't like they were like segregating themselves and or putting Confederate flags around themselves. They were like, no, we're real hip hop guys just like the rest of the city. At least that's how the documentary framed it. And they ended up collaborating with Bilo and the Gangsta. They collaborated with Boosie, which I didn't even know that they made an entire album with Boosie as well. Uh, what did you think about that part of the film?
Yeah, it was definitely nice that there was like a white group in that black rap community, and it was nice to see like there was no beef between those two sides, and they were like I guess like how this group started the coalition
Hmm.
was sort of like opening up for like bigger black artists, and then
Hmm.
they sort of got their own like juices flowing after a while.
Hmm.
It was definitely cool. I mean, I don't know, like, I'm not familiar with the whole jackass movement,
Hmm.
but yeah, definitely like the stuff they show in the videos. They're like constantly hurting themselves.
Yeah, what did you
Uh,
think about the part when he like nailed a part of his skin
ugh.
into like a door?
Yeah,
They were
that was
throwing
so
darts
like
into his back. He put a weed whacker to his shin. he put firecrackers on his arm. Like, what did you
Yeah.
think of like Tebow from South Coast Coalition doing all that
I
stuff?
was like, that's stupid. Yeah, that's definitely like something I'm not interested in. And I don't think it's fun. It's just like silly.
Hmm.
But I guess that was like the thing of back then.
Hmm.
And I don't know, it was cool to see like this white rappers, and like, I mean, you can't help but notice also like the differences too, because
Hmm.
like these guys went on to do a lot of albums without like having to go to jail or anything like that. You know,
Hmm.
they weren't really struggling like that. Yes, maybe they were poor and they were hustling and stuff,
Hmm.
but you can't help but see like those sort of like community, differences as well,
Yeah.
because nothing really stopped them like how black artists were sort of like, stopped with being incarcerated and things like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if the South Coast Coalition's fathers were like lawyers and doctors.
Yeah, I mean, it can be, but I
Yeah.
mean, we don't know their lives and stuff like that, but it's just, yeah, it's something that's you can't help but notice in the documentary.
Yeah, yeah. But I like how, the South Coast Coalition, like they really sort of lived up to their name with trying to bring everybody in the city together, because they pointed out in the film that Celo was making all these compilation albums, but they were only with his artists. And B-Lo was making records too, but he was only working with the gangster. But the South Coast Coalition said, let's make a compilation with everybody. Let's work with Boosie. Let's work with the gangster. Let's work with B-Lo. Let's put everybody on this thing together. And I like how they sort of brought the city together because, Baton Rouge also has a reputation for being a city with a lot of haters, where everybody's trying to, outdo each other or straight up kill each other. And I like how they, once again, this film sort of subverts a lot of stereotypes. Even for me, even somebody from Louisiana, I have stereotypes about Baton Rouge because we hear about the murders, we hear about all the beefs, and that's a lot of what's going on now between like the rappers that are coming out of Baton Rouge. But this film sort of shows that there was real, genuine love for hip hop and music and making it out of the struggle for everybody here. So I like that.
Definitely. I think at some point in the documentary, like, one of the white rappers, they say like, yeah, like white people were listening to, all the black rappers in Baton Rouge, but they wouldn't go to their concerts and shows.
Why do you think
And
that was?
I mean, they were scared.
Oh, hell yeah, they were
Like,
scared.
I don't know. I'm just imagining like, all the rap fans like coming out with big guns and all those things, and I don't know,
Hmm.
but because that was like, the fashion of back then, I guess.
Well, the thing is, like Baton Rouge, like many southern cities, is heavily segregated. So, like, white folks have their clubs, black folks have their clubs, and
Mm,
that sort of stuff. And that take,
okay, yeah.
yeah, and
But I
yeah,
was gonna
go
say
ahead.
like the also like, yeah, they kind of explain like that maybe also as a reason why they did this compilation album, because now they would have shows together,
Hmm.
so then the audience would also might have a chance to be together.
Yeah, yeah, because music can unify people. It can bring people together.
Yeah,
If it's good and if the vibes are good as well. So yeah, another thing that we forgot to talk about, but it's good to talk about it now, is that a lot of this was able to happen for all of these artists because there was an infrastructure, there was the radio supporting the artists, and they talk about how there was a radio station called WXOK AM, and they would make sure to play as many local artists as they could. And the program director was saying like if you the program director was telling the DJs on air, whatever you play, make sure it's from Baton Rouge, make sure you can support it, make sure it's a dope song, and we're rocking behind you. And that's something that's, very, very, very rare because, like, a lot of radio stations just want to try to play the big songs. They only want to play Jay-Z, Tupac, Biggie, Nas, whatever, right? But it was so cool to see that in Baton Rouge at the time on this underground AM radio station, they were supporting the local guys, and eventually the local AM station ended up going to FM. So I believe one of the bigger FM stations says we want to switch to like hip hop completely. I think it was 94.1 FM or something like that. And that became the very first like big FM hip hop radio station. Yeah, 94.1 FM. What did you think about, that part of the film?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely harder for me to relate or understand the importance of radio because when I was like growing up and starting to listen to music like that, I was like it was the time where you can download stuff from your computer or listen it on YouTube or something like that. So like
Mhm.
I never really listened to radio that much other than maybe in the car. But like I remember my mom always used to listen to it even around the house and in the kitchen because I don't know, like for her it's like, easier and she likes it more and she's used to
Mhm.
that. So I feel like yeah, at that time it was also like for the people who couldn't afford to get the CDs or, didn't have CD players or whatever or just wanted a good mix. This was like the Spotify playlists of that time, right? Like the
Mhm.
radios were those YouTube mixes and Spotify mixes that we have now.
Mhm. Mhm.
So yeah, I can see in that sense that it was very like important, and it also had a lot of like good effect of distributing the music, the local music.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, radio for me growing up was a big part of my life. I remember before YouTube, before streaming services, and if you were on the radio, you were famous. You made it. Like that was you made it to the top. And in Louisiana, it's just very hard to make it to the radio because a lot of our radio stations are actually owned by bigger corporations that just want to play, the songs that they know will work rather than the local artists who are trying to make it out. So in this film, they shout out all of those DJs. I have no time to shout them out because I don't remember any of their names, but y'all should watch this film if you really want to learn more about the DJ aspect of what was helping these artists like blow up. And so, yeah, jump into like sort of like the final part of this film, which is a bit weird. So the film is narrated by Max Minnelli, and then he spends like the last 20 minutes of the film narrating his own rap career. So like he's talking about Max Minnelli was a hardcore lyricist straight out the streets who released classic albums that had the clubs rocking and the girls twerking. My music, I mean Max Minnelli's music was loved by everyone. And I'm like, okay, it became a bit cringe. You get what I'm saying? I don't know. How did you feel about the last sort of like 20 minutes of this joint?
I mean, first of all, I have to give it to Max Minnelli because I think he did a very good job, like narrating the whole documentary. It was like very unique, like had his own like Baton Rouge twist to it with the accent, and like it was. I told you this when we were watching it as well. Like narration was almost like a rap as well. Like it
Hmm.
was very lyrical and very good storytelling. So I applaud him for that. But when he came to his own part, like you said, it became a bit cringe because yeah, like how are you gonna talk, like how, I don't know, I maybe I was thinking in my head like maybe they should have switched the narration here, like make a
Hmm.
little joke and then switch it or something.
Hmm.
But yeah, like I just couldn't help but think he was telling these things about himself,
Yeah.
and like he was telling like the inspiration behind his albums or like why he quit that label and how he was feeling, but in turn in the third person.
Hmm.
So that was like a bit, yeah, a bit weird, but still like he also did a lot of like good great things, and he took a lot of milestones.
Yeah, I think, like you said, switching narrators would have been cool. Like, Celo has a good voice to narrate. Like, it would have been cool. Like, Max Minnelli narrates parts of a film, then Celo, and then maybe Belo or another person because they're just reading from a script, right? So they could have just had a different voice read at different sections. So yeah, Max Minnelli, I feel like he tries to be objective about his career because he does say stuff like, people weren't feeling this album or this album is the one that really set it off. But it's hard for us as the audience to believe and trust you when you're talking about your own work. And yeah, that's all I have to say.
Yeah, yeah, it is. And also, like, I couldn't help but think, so he's narrating himself,
Mm-hmm.
and then they're showing like his footages from back then.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's also doing an interview now talking about himself back then. So it's like three times Max Minnelli. Like he's the only person in the documentary for like a good 20 minutes or something.
Right.
And it was just hilarious.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I will say this though, I do think Max Minnelli deserves a lot more respect. I can say, for me coming up in Monroe and for Louisiana hip hop in general, Max Minnelli is like a he is a major figure, but he has yet to sort of like make his mark. Like we know Max Minnelli for being that guy featured on a lot of our favorite Louisiana hip hop songs or albums, but I don't feel like Max Minnelli has like that hardcore fan base that rides for him because I can be honest, I've never met somebody who was like, man, Max go hard, Max that dude. You know what I mean? But I do think Max Minnelli did pave the way for literally my favorite rapper of all time, Kevin Gates, to sort of come out. I do think Kevin Gates took a lot of inspiration from Max and a lot of his style and swag, but just elevated it to an extreme level. Like Gates is out of this world, and I got to tip my hat to Max. Number one for making this doc, and for sort of laying the groundwork for Gates to do what he did.
Okay, okay. Like I don't know, like yeah, the relationship between now like Louisiana rappers and then Louisiana rappers, but I'm guessing like maybe if you go to Baton Rouge, there would be like some hardcore fans of Max Minnelli, but
Hmm.
maybe not in all of Louisiana, if you
Right.
get what I mean. So yeah, but it does look like he definitely had like some good songs, like they play some of them, and he was like an important figure at the time.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the way I said, well, the way Max sort of influenced Kevin Gates is because Max Minnelli was on a label called Dead Game Records. And on Dead Game Records, they say this in the documentary, Kevin Gates was on there too. And, they sort of collaborated together. And I'm sure they had a lot of conversations. And, you know, Max helped Kevin develop and grow.
Yeah, but I guess they also do say like he got out of the that record deal because
Hmm.
he wasn't feeling like it was doing good for him.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Maybe
But,
that's why like he didn't blow up that big.
yeah, maybe that's why it seemed like, he never he didn't like the major labels and how they were marketing him, and he also didn't like the way that it was going in the streets for him. And plus, some bad things happened in his career. You get what I'm saying? Like he had a collapsed lung. His mother passed away. His CEO Celo got locked up. So Max Minnelli had a lot of obstacles in his career that sort of hindered his growth.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But the film ends with basically a lot of, with Max Minnelli talking about, Baton Rouge is like a small place, but it has such a big influence and such a deep history. And then all the other people are talking about, why BR is so special. Like Bilo says, like this certain thing about our culture makes us different. Celo says, Baton Rouge is known for up tempo, high energy gangster music, and Mouse, one of a legendary producer from Baton Rouge, he says like, BR is that type of place where you can get crunk in the club, but then after that, a guy will literally shoot you in the face. And they start highlighting some of the newer artists who made it out of Baton Rouge, like NBA YoungBoy and Kevin Gates and stuff like that. And I didn't like this part of the film, how at the end, there's like these two white guys. One I believe is like the mayor, and the other one is like the former chief of police. These two white guys are talking about all the violence in the city comes from the music. Like the police chief is saying, like, people are killing each other over stealing a beat or stealing a song or stealing a lyric. And the mayor, the other old white guy, is talking about a lot of the violence comes from the hip hop artists, the hip hoppers, and stuff like that. And I didn't like that because, come on, man, like the reason why everybody's in the streets, the reason why people are toting straps and selling crack and stuff like that is because there ain't no goddamn jobs in Baton Rouge. And because we got a bunch of racist ass white folks that don't want to give niggas opportunities. And I hate that. I hate that that was allowed to be in the film. That, instead of talking about the rampant poverty, where like 30% of Baton Rougeans have like food insecurity, that's not spoken about. But we can speak about how the rappers are the reason people are dying. I didn't like that, but yeah, that's pretty much the end of the film. What did you think about everything?
Yeah, like ending was definitely like a wrap up inspirational like speech from everybody, right? Like I mean you summarized it perfectly, and I like that they were like everyone was like, yeah, Baton Rouge is the place for like when you're having all these struggles, it's the gutter and all of those things, but then like we also have exceptional stuff coming from here, and we're like high energy, and yeah, I like that part of it. As like I like that everyone was like proud of where they were from,
Mm-hmm.
which was very cool. And I do agree on you with like those two like white politicians talking about it, because like we discussed earlier, like is it art that influences our life, or does life influence like art?
Mm-hmm.
So they made it seem like, yeah, like gang violence or any type of violence was happening because of music,
Mm-hmm.
when yeah, there might be cases like that, but it's not the origin of it, or it's not the only reason for violence.
Yeah.
Definitely. So yeah, that was a bit like not good, I
Yeah.
guess. And I don't know like why they put it there, but yeah, it was definitely like a good ending to an inspirational like documentary.
Yeah, out of the hundreds of homicides that have happened in Baton Rouge, literally maybe a dozen have been hip hop related. But the vast majority of people that are shooting and killing each other in the streets are shooting and killing each other over petty, stupid beef. But it comes back down to money. We don't have opportunities. We don't have a lot of ways to actually earn a decent living, right?
Yeah.
Working at McDonald's, working at Walmart, working at the mall, working for minimum wage. That's all Baton Rouge like really has to offer. You get what I'm saying? So
Yeah. And
yeah.
also like you have to acknowledge that music reflects your life as well. So it's not like these people are, the people who are rapping, they're not trying to like tell people to go out and kill and stuff like that, but they're rather like telling their stories of what they see on the streets.
Hmm. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, this was an interesting documentary. What's your final score for it?
Mm, let's see. I'm going to give it an 8.
Okay. Why?
Because I really, really like the narration. I know I said it like 1,000 times, but I thought it was just very unique and it was fun.
Hmm.
It was so nice to see like that chain of inspiration and I don't know, talents like continuing on throughout the documentary. I like that they included like white artists and I don't know, like different lives and life paths. Like some people went to jail, some people made something better.
Hmm.
I don't know, some people rose to fame, some didn't, and all of those things. And I thought like it shows the reality, but it doesn't like get stuck up on it.
Hmm.
And yeah, it's like generally like a positive feeling that you get from the documentary.
Hmm.
So yeah, I really liked it.
Yeah, yeah. I really liked it too. It's one of the most unique hip hop documentaries I've seen. I've seen quite a few hip hop docs, but none shot with this certain focus on such a unique place, and with the editing and the production value and the way it's all mixed together. It's very, very, very high quality, very glossy, gives a certain aesthetic to it. So yeah, my review is like possibly a 9. I just really didn't like how, you start off talking about all these, old white men who were criminals in Baton Rouge. One criminal who literally dropped guns from planes into the city. And then you end the film by talking about, all the murders are happening because of lyrics. Like, stop it. That's what I didn't like about that. But other than that, it's very great history. After watching it, is Baton Rouge a place you would want to visit?
I'm not gonna lie, I got a bit scared. But I would definitely visit, like, yeah, I would visit any place once.
Hmm.
So yeah, I can see that even though like yeah, there is that reality and harshness and violence there. I'm sure there's also a lot of culture, you know, a lot of love in some parts as well. So yeah, I would visit it definitely.
Yeah, I've been to Baton Rouge a few times. It doesn't feel like as small of a city as they describe it, but maybe that's me because I come from a city of 50K and Baton Rouge is about 220K.
Mm.
So it's an interesting place. It's not like New Orleans. It has its own swag and style, and it's a bit slower paced, but it's an interesting place nonetheless. And there's some great food there too. All over Louisiana, we got great food.
Yeah, I was gonna say that too.
Yep, yep, yep. But yeah, so this has been Simon and Acti movie reviews for Diamonds in the Dirt, the Max Spinelli Baton Rouge rap documentary. Shout out to MC Nero, shout out to Kuiper, shout out to Bilo, shout out to Boosie, shout out to Celo, shout out to Max Spinelli, shout out to all the Baton Rouge legends who helped pave the way for so much great music to come out of the Magnolia State. Oh wait, no, we're the Pelican State. Pardon. But yeah, yeah, yeah. And yeah, catch us next time for Simon and Acting movie reviews. Follow us on Spotify and peace.